President Trump is backing away from a fight in Congress this week over building a Mexico border wall. Senior administration officials tell CBS News Mr. Trump will no longer insist that this year's budget include money for the wall.
That issue threatened a deadlock in Congress that could have shut down the government. The wall will now be part of next year's budget instead.
The president is moving on to another campaign promise, cutting corporate tax rates. Margaret Brennan is at the White House. Margaret, good morning.
Good morning. Well, with just a few days to go before President Trump hits that self-imposed 100-day deadline, he is sending a group of top advisors to Capitol Hill to close some deals, including Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, Gary Cohn, and Vice President Mike Pence, whose plane touched down on a return trip from Asia just moments ago.
I'm headed back to Capitol Hill. There's a spending bill that's being considered as we speak.
The vice president returned a day early from his Asia trip to help push through a spending plan to avoid a government shutdown.
The 2,200-mile wall doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Without broad-based Republican support, Congress will hold off on financing Mr. Trump's border wall this week.
The cost of the wall is staggering.
For Democrats and a number of border state Republicans, the wall was a pricey deal breaker. But they've agreed in principle to more funding for border security and surveillance. Another presidential goal has been grounded. A second attempt to repeal and replace Obamacare is unlikely to happen in the next few days.
We can't make people vote, but we've made significant progress.
Asked why the president has not worked with Congress to pass the 10 pieces of legislation he promised in his first 100 days, Press Secretary Sean Spicer instead pointed to the 32 executive orders Mr. Trump will have signed off on by Friday. That's the most of any president since World War II.
But I think you have to look at it in totality of what he actually did get done.
Mr. Trump is also unveiling a tax reform blueprint Wednesday to cut corporate tax rates from 35% to 15%.
We're reducing your taxes.
It's similar to a plan Mr. Trump unveiled during the campaign, which the Independent Tax Policy Center estimated would cost the federal government nearly $2.4 trillion over a decade. Yesterday, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said the final plan won't add to the deficit.
The tax plan will pay for itself with economic growth.
While reality may have grounded many of Mr. Trump's legislative expectations,
this is a very special day in the
during a very long-distance call, Mr. Trump congratulated a somersaulting Dr. Peggy Whitson on breaking the U.S. record for the most days in space, and jokingly set a deadline for Americans to make it to Mars.
Well, we want to try and do it during my first term, or at worst during my second term. And while the president has called the 100-day mark a, quote, ridiculous standard, the White House launched this website today outlining and commemorating what they see as their biggest wins so far. Norah, it feels like sweeps week here at the White House.
All right. Margaret, thank you so much.